Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Um, Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar this evening. Before diving in, I wanna offer a special word of welcome to our new middle school families. We are so excited to begin our work with you and to have you join the community. Regardless of the method of academic delivery, we are eager to work with you all to see each of our students learn and grow. As we begin the new academic year, we are committed to helping everyone in our community feel connected, seen, valued, and supported. Welcome to North Shore. And to our returning families, welcome to the new school year. There's been a lot of good work happening this summer in preparation for this year with our middle schoolers, and we're really excited to share the direction we're heading in and how we'll continue to focus on what matters most. Things like community, exploration, challenge, curiosity, and of course, living and serving. My colleagues and I are ready to reconnect with many of you, to introduce ourselves to a number of you for the first time, to share our plans for physically opening the middle school in a few weeks, and to offer some pointers on how to support your middle school child as they navigate their re-entry to school this fall. So, this is our outline for today, and you'll see we have a lot to cover while also wanting to make sure that there's time for questions at the end. So I'll start by quickly introducing myself, and then my team will do so too. I am Barry Fulton, head of the middle school, and this is my 4th year at North Shore Country Day. And I'll turn it over to my colleagues to share who they are and what their positions are at North Shore as well.
Hi everyone, I am Rachel Sun. I'm the middle school dean of students. This is my 2nd year as dean and my 3rd year at North Shore.
Hi everyone, my name's Laura Cooper and I'm the middle school counselor, and this is my 3rd year at North Shore.
Thank you both. We also have on the call our head of school, Tom Flemma, director of operations, Cindy Hooper, Director of Athletics, Patrick McHugh, and school nurse, Jamie Walker, who are all here to answer any questions you may have specifically for them at the end of the session. Our plan for today is as follows. We'll present for about 30 to 40 minutes, and while we're presenting or after, please feel free to use the chat function to submit questions, and we'll talk more about that at the end, about how to do that. If a question's meant for one of us in particular, please note that by selecting our names as well. In those cases, the questions will go to one of us privately. We'll try to address all of the questions at the end of our presentation, but we might not be able to address every single one. If we aren't able to get to them all due to time, we'll certainly follow up individually if we don't get to your specific question, and anything that applies to everyone will of course be communicated in another middle school update. So, a few thoughts from me. One of the major takeaways from last spring is that learning can happen in so many formats, including remotely. While teaching from afar, the faculty and I were able to find success due to our students' commitment to their academic growth, to their willingness to try new things and be flexible, and due to the preparation of and support from our faculty as they created virtual lessons and implemented both synchronous and asynchronous activities intended to make the academic content stick. Lessons that were memorable due to their inventiveness and due to the faculty's use of tech tools, both those that were new and exciting and those that were tried and true. The student body exceeded my expectations last year with their willingness to check in with and learn from their teachers and from one another on Zoom, to expand their horizons, and more importantly, to interact with one another and continue to build our community. Moving to the fall, it's critical that we seize the in-person opportunity to build our community and our individual relationships with students, so that if we do need to go fully remote at any point during the year, we can capitalize on those foundational relationships with one another to hold students accountable for their learning, even from afar. As is the case with each schedule option we have created for this year, be it fully in person, hybrid, or fully remote, our commitment to meeting the needs of middle school students remains core. The learning environment needs to remain flexible, engaging, fun, and student-centric, words that returning families have heard me say before. When we start in person in a few weeks, faculty will begin classes as we traditionally do each September, with a slower but steady ramping up of what we ask students to accomplish. During our opening classes, teachers will be reviewing some content from last year, of course, but also assessing what students know and what they may have forgotten over the summer months, and getting them swiftly on the path to learning new content. The benefits of this new model and the similarity between our half-day in-person and our full-day remote schedules is that if we do need to go remote at any point, we don't need to pause and restart school with another slow and steady ramp up each time. Additionally, knowing that strong educational practice takes time and training, our faculty also participated in even more professional development over the summer. In preparation, all of the middle and upper school faculty engaged in a 3-week virtual course offered by One Schoolhouse that highlighted the importance of a consistent class structure on our learning management system, which for those of you who are new, is called Power School, and a consistent cadence or a rhythm to when and how we ask students to participate in different learning activities. Focusing on these two major improvements will create even more robust programming that can be delivered either in person, remotely, or in a hybrid model. As always, we want to be sure that our program continues to support students, establish routine and a sense of normalcy, maintain community and connection to teachers and peers, and most importantly, advance the curriculum. In addition to our work with One Schoolhouse, we're continuing to work with the educational technology team of Middle and Upper School Technology Integrator Kenyatta Forbes and Director of Educational Technology Lucy Gray in order to learn the new hardware necessary to deliver our classes to students who may need to participate from home, and to investigate new tools and apps that can increase our productivity and streamline our workflow. As Rachel, Tom Flemma, Cindy Hooper, and I began thinking through the nuances of the hybrid schedule a number of months ago, we strongly considered the idea of shifting away from our traditional class and advisory groupings to more of a cohort model, similar to what the lower school has. In our conversations and after a deep dive investigation of how to cohort our students based on their core classes, we decided to move away from that model. We moved away from it because our scheduling priorities this year are to maintain safe numbers for social distancing in every classroom, to not share rooms with the lower school, and to continue with elements of our co-curricular program that we feel really do best support our students. We also made the commitment very early on to have students sanitize their work surfaces at the start and end of each of their classes. We made the choice to keep advisory in person, even though it's a cross-grade activity, because it's a valuable support system and a strong opportunity for students to build relationships and community in person. Additionally, we knew that our athletic program would also be a cross-grade offering, so students would also have exposure to other grade levels there. Finally, our investigation on cohorting showed that we would need at least 30 different cohorts in order to group students by grade level, and then by math course, and then by language course, both of which are core academic departments that have multiple courses that meet students where they are, and all of which we believe need to happen in person as much as possible. Many of those cohorts of the 30 plus that we came up with also had as few as 2 students in them, which also presented an insurmountable staffing issue. So in terms of where we landed with the actual middle school hybrid schedule, Rachel will talk a bit more about our goals and some highlights in a bit. and I will talk you through the nuts and bolts of the schedule now. As you can see, when we're physically on campus in the morning, we will alternate between two daily schedules. Day 1 includes A, B, and C, and D blocks. And day 2 includes E, F, and G blocks, and something that we're calling this year community time, which used to be our 9:30 block. Our academic blocks on campus, as you can see, are 55 minutes long, and we have 5-minute transition breaks for students to change classes. From noon to 1:30, only students in a fall sport can remain on campus for lunch in monitored, socially distanced spaces, followed by practice. Students participating in athletics may bring food from home or pick up a box lunch, which can be purchased in advance from Hand-Cut Foods. All other students not participating in sports are dismissed at 11:55. Our performing arts, health, physical education, and co-curricular classes, which for our new families on the call are creative writing for 6th grade, drama for 7th grade, and public speaking in 8th, will meet remotely in the afternoons and serve as the official end of the school day from 2:30 to 3:05 p.m. This allows time for travel home after sports. In addition to class time, each of the core academics will also have one asynchronous model per week. Our intent with this new asynchronous program this year is to offer work that extends classroom learning. This work may range from individual to collaborative, from active to reflective, and from review to enrichment. Students should expect approximately 35 minutes per week of asynchronous work for each of their core classes. It's important to note that the overall number of minutes that students will be spending in school and in doing asynchronous work together mirrors the amount of time students typically spent engaged in school in our traditional full day on campus schedule. The asynchronous work is separate from our traditionally assigned homework, of which students should still expect between 1 hour and 2 hours per night, depending on grade level. All assignments, whether completed during class or as a part of homework, will be able to be submitted on an iPad. Our hope is that keeping consultancy and common work periods, which for our new families are 2 different types of study halls that happen during the day, keeping both of those as part of our weekly schedule offers students the opportunities to connect with their teachers for support and to complete the majority of their asynchronous work and homework during school hours. Please note that we are still determining what paper and binder use will look like, and we're looking for more alternative virtual ways for teachers to distribute content as we speak. In the event that we need to go fully remote, the only difference in the schedule that you see versus the schedule that we would be using fully remote is that classes will last for 45 minutes instead of 55 in order to allow for more time away from screens in between each commitment. In terms of some more details, we will primarily be using classrooms in the upper school building, the art center, and the science center. These classrooms have good ventilation, and immediately after our use will be cleaned and used in the afternoon for upper school classes. These classrooms will also be deep cleaned each evening in preparation for the next day of middle school use. Students won't have locker access this year. Instead, they will need to carry items for the day in standard size backpacks that fit underneath our nodes. Nodes is the name of the classroom desk in the majority of our classrooms, both in the upper school and the middle school. While there are other tools and apps that teachers will use to educate while students are in class, we are only going to be using PowerSchool and email to communicate about classes. Assignments and assessments will be listed in 2-week cycles so that students can forecast their workloads. And all students will receive training in PowerSchool use and submission of homework and asynchronous work at the start of the year, while teachers will also inform students of any course-specific requirements for submitting work and how they will receive feedback. Students are expected to meet deadlines for submitting assignments for all classes, both those that happen in person in the morning and those that happen remotely in the afternoons, in the same way. Our learning specialists, Christine Ritchie and Kay Cole, will continue to meet with students during regularly scheduled consultancy blocks, which again are proctored study halls during the morning hours. And students will also be able to connect with Christine and Kay and all of their other teachers during our remote afternoon common work periods as well. For our new families, common work periods are also study hall blocks when all teachers of a particular grade level are free alongside their students. So next, I'm going to go over some details about arrivals and dismissals. To begin, students should arrive on campus before 8 a.m., again, before 8 a.m., to have their temperature taken and begin heading to their first class of the day. If students need to arrive early, between 7:20 and 7:45 a.m., they must be dropped off at the upper school circle lot in order to use the main entrance to the upper school and get their temperature checked. There's only one location for that, from 7:20 to 7:45. Once checked in, early arriving students will have to wait socially distanced in the upper school V, which is a space on the first floor of the upper school, until 7:45 a.m. And then for the majority of students coming in between 7:45 and 8, they can be dropped off either in the circle lot or the upper school student lot, and they will be able to enter buildings through the Art Center entrance and both the main and south entrances of the upper school building. For those of you for whom this is confusing, there is a map in the email that I sent a few days ago, and I'll be sure to reference it on our COVID-19 webpage as well. But regardless of arrival time, families will need to answer a number of health-related questions each morning via school pass before your child enters campus each day. More details on school pass will come from Director of Operations Cindy Hooper in the next couple of weeks. Students who cannot be picked up at our dismissal times will be expected to stay in a centralized, socially distanced, and supervised study hall location. More information about this new program will be coming early next week. In terms of attendance, students will be asked to check in with their teachers, consultancy proctors, or common work period proctors at the beginning of each scheduled block, whether those classes are in person or remote. Our hope is that the students use the unscheduled time between morning and afternoon classes to obviously get home, eat lunch, and complete their weekly asynchronous work for each core class. If your child requires an early dismissal, which would be, of course, between 8 and 11:55, please email msattendance@nscds, the S is included, .org, with the time of departure and the name of who will be picking up your child, so that we can be sure to have your child ready to be picked up at the upper school circle lot. There's only one place where you can pick up an early dismissed child. Please also email us if your child will ultimately not be able to participate in the remote classes that happen in the afternoon. We are also taking attendance then. If your child is unexpectedly unable to attend school for the day and will not be participating in class activities remotely, please email the same address, msattendance@nscds.org, no later than 7:45 a.m. for recording purposes. If there's an anticipated physical absence, but your child is able to attend some classes remotely, please also email us, this time CCing your child's advisor and their instructors so that they can plan accordingly and have the technology ready to broadcast their class on Zoom during your child's scheduled time with them. If your child needs to be remote during our time in the hybrid model, we will work with students as they virtually attend live classes through a camera and Zoom combination in the classroom that allows them to observe and participate during the in-person half of the day. During the remote portion of the day, they will participate with all the other students and have the same access to teachers and group work as those who were in person in the morning. Regardless of the situation, please communicate with us, Sheila and us, about attendance as soon as you can. Just a quick point for all of our new families. We have the amazing Sheila Burke, who's also on the call. She is the middle school administrative assistant, and she manages attendance for the day. With her, under her jurisdiction, keeping a close eye on attendance has been incredibly critical to uncovering which students are struggling to keep up whenever we're remote. In terms of safety and wellness, this is going to be a full community effort. We need to depend on one another to do everything we can to remain safe and healthy in order to keep our school community safe and healthy. Our safety guidelines while at school will require everyone's full acceptance and compliance, and I am asking for your partnership in reinforcing and supporting our safety plans with your children at home. As I mentioned earlier, in addition to your completion of the School Pass app each morning, all students, faculty, and staff will have a temperature check as they enter school. Mask wearing will be required for all students, employees, and scheduled visitors while indoors and also outdoors when a 6-foot physical separation can't be maintained. Just quickly, in regards to the types of masks that are acceptable for use on campus, we're asking for any of the following. They can be disposable, surgical, the N95 masks, of course, or masks with 2-ply fabric or more. We are asking, however, that there be no vents on the mask. Students will be encouraged to take socially distanced mask breaks outside as they travel between classes. And additionally, depending on the day, teachers may elect to bring their students outside for socially distanced moments or even full class periods in designated Wi-Fi accessible areas. As I alluded to a little bit earlier, classrooms have been organized with seats 6 feet apart, and rooms with nodes, which again are the classroom seating, will have markings on the floor as a reminder to our students and our faculty for socially distanced placement. Students will also wipe down their desks before and after class, and there will be one-way traffic flows through our buildings to minimize contact during passing times. We will be quite clear with students during our advisory orientations in a few weeks about how to travel across campus between their classes. And now I will turn it over to my colleagues Rachel and then Laura to share some more about our new policies and to also share their thoughts and suggestions as we move towards a physical return to school.
Thank you, Barry. And for all of you, first of all, good evening. I ask that you please be a little bit patient with me as I transition between slides and talk. It's a little hard to multitask sometimes. I want to talk with you all about the ways in which we plan to support students in this transition back to school and, of course, throughout the year. So drawing on what we observed during remote learning last spring, being consistent and clear in our routines and expectations and maintaining time for community building are critical elements for student success. While it might feel like a lot is changing and unpredictable as we approach the academic year, the core of our programming and values as a division remains. And we're working on systems to support our students both in person and remotely. So I'd like to start off with the big picture principles around the design of our hybrid schedule, which Barry already described, and how this supports student needs through consistency. As we designed this middle school schedule for the year, we felt it was critical to develop a model that would work for us whether we're in person or remote, as Barry said, and it allows us to toggle between the two if the needs arise. So this schedule provides students with a regular, predictable routine with minimal change between hybrid and remote learning if we need to go remote. With blocks that are non-rotating and a 2-day model than our typical 7-day model, students are going to be able to develop habits and routines around their travel between classes and how and what they pack each day for school. And advisors and teachers will also be working with all of your children on figuring out the best strategies for making sure they have the right materials for day 1s, day 2s, and then working on developing those habits more and more. This schedule also provides opportunities for student support and connection with teachers remotely in the afternoons through the common work periods that Barry described. And it also includes time for faculty to meet in grade level teams to discuss student progress and work proactively to find students the help or challenge they need. Another element of our program that offers you and your child consistency is the advisory program. We made the decision to include advisory as part of our morning schedule to maintain frequent touch points every 1 to 2 weeks so that your child can develop meaningful relationships with their advisor and others in their advisory. Furthermore, your child retains the same advisor throughout their time in middle school, creating consistency from year to year. Your child's advisor is a great first point of contact as they have the most global picture of your child's performance in classes, as well as areas for support and challenge. At the same time, advisors seek to partner with families. So if you see or hear anything from your child at home that you have questions about, your child's advisor is a great first point of contact. As Barry wrote in his letter earlier this week, your child's advisor will be reaching out to you during the week of August 17th to find a time to connect before the beginning of school. This conversation gives advisors the opportunity to learn more about your child and begin thinking about the ways they might help support your child throughout the year. This is especially a critical conversation for families and students who are new to the middle school or new to North Shore. This helps establish a general understanding of your child, and I would encourage any of you, whether you're new or returning, if your child had any pivotal experiences over the summer, or if there was anything that you observed or noticed during remote learning last spring, that would be really valuable information to share with your child's advisor. Additionally, new for this year, adding on to our advisory time together, we're going to ease the transition back to school by starting with advisory orientation the week of August 24th. And you should each have received a letter from me this week if you are a new family or new to middle school, naming your child's advisor and telling you which day your child's advisory orientation will be. So particularly for new families and students new to middle school, this is a great opportunity, this orientation, for your child to begin developing a relationship with their advisors and with their peers in their advisory. And if you have any questions about advisory orientation, or if for some reason your child is not able to make their scheduled date, please feel free to email me. We know that adolescents thrive when they have clear and consistent expectations. As Laura will discuss more, a lot of things might feel really muddy or opaque to your child right now. While so much feels like it's shifting, our goal is to share clear expectations about behavior that will help every student feel welcome and safe as part of our community. As part of our advisory orientations, we will discuss safety procedures and expectations critical for students to be familiar with before officially starting school. And then on the first day of school, which we call Organization Day, we're including additional time to review safety and behavioral expectations, and also talk through the responsible use of technology, both for in-person work and remote work. Students will also have time on organization day to talk through and look at their trimester 1 schedules, to locate all of their classrooms, and make sure that they can access all of their classes on PowerSchool. Again, clarity and consistency will go hand in hand with many of our practices this year. As we did last spring, we will maintain a middle school information website for students to access the daily schedule, announcements, and resources from the counseling, learning support, and technology offices. Barry will continue to share the weekly middle school scoop, which for those of you who are new to our middle school is a great way for organizing your week. I personally sit down and look at it every weekend, put it all into my paper planner because I'm old school. So I would encourage you all as the school year begins to sit down with your child on the weekend and help them develop the habit of looking through the scoop, thinking about how to prepare for the week, and sort of previewing what the week is going to look like for them. And to supplement the scoop, students will also have access to a grade level specific Google Calendar, which includes individual class blocks as well as days off of school. Finally, we wanted to maintain opportunities for safe community building that can foster connections between students. To that end, we built community time into every day too in our schedule. These community time blocks will include socially distanced modifications of advisory, class meetings, community gatherings, which are middle school wide, and our monthly equity, diversity, and inclusion lessons. As we approach the opening of this upcoming school year, we're still trying to decide on the format that clubs will take on this year. I hope to solicit feedback from students to find a format where club meetings can still feel meaningful for students to bond over their shared interests, and a format that remains safe for our students. And lastly, in our opportunities for connection, recognizing that circumstances both nationally and locally are constantly shifting, we're still hopeful that we will be able to offer middle school students some low-risk options for fall sports and activities. Patrick McHugh and Rebecca Kaufman have been working on developing programming that meets the health and safety needs for our students, while offering them opportunities to participate in athletics and connect with their peers outside of academics. As we approach the beginning of the school year, we will have more details on these offerings. So now I'm going to turn this over to Laura Cooper, who will address students' social emotional well-being.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Rachel. Again, I'm Laura Cooper, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and this is my 3rd year at North Shore. And let's just go ahead and take a collective deep breath together. That was a lot of information to process, and we've all experienced a great deal these past several months. I think it's really important to acknowledge that you as parents are probably also struggling with all these transitions and changes that we're talking about today. So know that at the end of the slideshow, and when Barry shares out the slideshow with you, there will be resources for you to access as parents. And also know that you can reach out to me directly at any time for a confidential referral. So the exciting news is my counseling office will be in the same physical location this year, tucked in the corner near the Science Center bathrooms. And I'll be able to safely meet with students individually at school or on Zoom in the afternoons, and on Zoom if we need to go remote. I'm hopeful that there may be opportunities for some small group meetings that we could do safely outside as well. And another thing I want everyone to know is that in addition to the counseling department, all of our middle school faculty and the administrators are prepared to support the social and emotional well-being of our students, whether we're in the physical classroom or remote. And so this summer, faculty have engaged not only in curriculum development, like Barry was mentioning earlier, but also trauma-informed best practices for the classroom and youth mental health first aid trainings. So we're really starting this year ready to support the whole student. So tonight, I'm just going to give an overview of some ways you can support your child at home as they begin the physical transition back to campus, and some specific tips to try. And then we'll also cover some behaviors to keep an eye out for as your child returns to school in the coming weeks. So leading up to the return to school, your child may have worries or questions about the huge amount of unknowns. And you can see here on this iceberg graphic, our students may not have the language or the tools to verbalize that yet. And so often these worries can show up in different behaviors. And if you were with us in the spring, I also shared this graphic then as well. I thought it was pretty useful. Your middle schooler is likely feeling 2 or more things at the same time. These may even be opposing feelings. They might be feeling excited and worried, or frustrated and uncertain. And so you can help your child deal with this through modeling by sharing your own feelings and also sharing what you do to help manage this. For example, tonight you may share, "I'm feeling overwhelmed today by the amount of information to prepare for returning to school. So I'm going to take a walk and clear my mind," or "I'm going to call a friend," or "let's watch a funny show to give my brain a break." So this acknowledges that there will be big feelings, but you're also able to manage it by sharing out loud and by using healthy coping skills. So prior to stepping back into the building, there are some things that you can be doing these next few weeks that will help smooth the transition. At home, you can role play, how to politely ask someone to step back and how to mind your personal space. Practice saying the words, build the muscle memory. The more that you do it, the less awkward it feels in the moment. Practice wearing the masks, wear the masks while you're playing video games or while you're taking a walk together. Another idea you may have seen involves hula hoops, hence my graphic here on the slide. If you have a hula hoop, you can hold one up around your waist and your middle schooler's waist, and you can practice standing and talking and getting no closer than each other's hula hoops. Again, this is building the muscle memory and making it feel more comfortable. So we also know during this time, routines and rituals feel more important right now than ever. And as Rachel mentioned, consistency is so key. And so any touch point of certainty that we can give our students right now will go a long way as we're navigating all these changes in the world. So some ideas, and you may already have routines in your family, but it may be helpful to start maybe taking a walk together, or a cute idea was picking a family theme song you could play in the car every day after pickup from school, or maybe knowing just what's the family schedule after school or in the evening. Is it always going to be gaming after dinner or decompression time? Any activity at home that can be around the same time every day and that's not tied to behavioral consequences or privileges will be really helpful as you deal, again, with all these changes. Rachel mentioned that our advisory orientations will be happening the week of August 24th, and I'm really excited. I'll get to meet all the students and talk with everyone at that time as well. And I would encourage you to check in with your student after that orientation, and then again a few days later to see what lingering questions they have or concerns maybe that it brought up. And I'm really stressing again, a few days later, because we know you're likely to get an answer of "it was fine," or "it was boring," or "it was cool" on the day of the orientation when their brains may not have fully processed all the information yet. And so again, your child's advisor or any one of us here on the webinar tonight are happy to answer any of those questions that come up. No question is too small. So next, I want to share some tips to support yourselves at home and your children for the first few days and weeks once we actually return to school. And so we know that these first few days back at school are going to feel even more exhausting than a typical first day or typical first week of school. Your child's brains are processing massive amounts of information, and they'll be working really hard to stay hyper aware of personal safety, also expectations, and any changes. So I would strongly suggest you keep the afternoons and evenings free and unscheduled as much as you possibly can. And also limit your child and yourself having to make decisions as much as possible in the evenings. For example, having a dinner plan already in place. We know that stress and fatigue hit the weakest executive functioning skills the hardest. So preparing ahead of time, if you know what some of those stress points are. An example, and this is something I also do, have your child plan out their outfits for each day ahead of time, for that first week. And then it'll be one less decision point in the morning that you need to make. So we also want to create space for your child to share the variety of feelings about their day. They're likely going to have many ups and downs throughout the day, even though they'll only be on campus for 4 hours. I've put on the slide some graphics that references like different ways that we can check in with our students about how they're feeling. They may be familiar with some of these from advisory if they've been here in earlier years. Using the structure of the rosebud thorn graphic is a way for kids to share something they liked about their day, which is the rose, something that wasn't so great, the thorn, and something they're excited for or looking forward to, or something they're uncertain about is the bud. Another fun one could be sharing your emotional weather report for the day. Was it partly sunny with some rain in the morning? What was the rain? What was the sun part of your day? And so things like this allow your child to share dual feelings of excitement about being back at school, seeing their friends, and also any worries or concerns that may be coming up. And if you know your child's not a talker, right, they're in middle school, if they're not into that right now, meet them where they are, send them a text asking what was a thumbs up emoji experience for you today? What was the thumbs down part of your day? You may get some good information that way. So I also want to share just some things to look out for these next few weeks. And Rachel, okay, great, thanks. So as we transition the next few weeks, we know that our students are resilient in so many ways, but I think the big question that we're all holding in our minds is, when do these predictable reactions to a pandemic, into racial injustice, turn the corner into something that needs more professional support? And so things we're looking out for are big changes in mood, changes in behaviors, appetite, sleeping patterns. If there's withdrawing, isolating, physical aggression, or concerning statements like nothing matters or what's the point. You may have also noticed that many of the things I just described could fall under the umbrella of puberty or middle school. And we know that our summer routines look very different, right? Our sleeping and eating habits look very different in the summer. So this may feel confusing, and we know there will be some transition time. But if you're at all worried about any of these changes or any of these symptoms, I would encourage you to talk it out. Talk to me, talk to your child's pediatrician, and check in with your child directly. You can say, hey, I've noticed this blank behavior lately, and it seems different. Is there anything you want to talk about? And so just starting that conversation. And again, if anything is concerning, please reach out to your support team. So knowing that we've been living through and experiencing a lot of trauma these past few months, I'm hoping to be best prepared as a middle school counselor to support your child and to guide our work as we're supporting their mental health at school. There will be a survey sent out on behalf of the counseling department, and it'll come in the next few days, that asks questions about how you would say your child's handling the stressors of the events of the past few months, and anything that you'd want to share that could foster an environment of success. So I would greatly appreciate it if you could take the time to fill it out. I know there's probably been a lot of surveys lately, but it would really, really help my work with them. And so also on the screen are some helpful articles and resources that when you get the slide deck, you can just click directly on them and it'll take you right to the articles. And I also put on there the anxiety workbook, which I think is a super helpful tool for parents and adults. And you can work through this at your own pace, and there's tons of resources in it. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Barry and Rachel, and I think they'll go through some questions that you have. And thank you all for listening.
Thanks so much, Laura. and thank you, Rachel, as well. So what you'll see on the screen are some questions that we've seen a lot through the All School webinar and the other division webinars this week. And we're hopeful that answering some of them in advance will help to clarify some of your concerns before we open it up for questions. So to begin, snacks will not be permitted to be eaten inside of the school buildings, but if a student needs like a quick pick-me-up in between classes, they can eat that snack outside as they travel between their class commitments. In terms of water bottles, yes, we do want students to bring their own water bottles. There will not be access to the water fountains, but we are encouraging water bottles with a straw top so that students can use the bottles without fully having to remove their masks. In terms of bathroom policies and bathroom use, teachers are going to be lenient this year about bathroom trips during class, so allowing kids to use the bathroom during class in order to avoid crowding and lines between classes. Bathroom sizes across campus vary, and so we are taking that into consideration, and we are limiting the occupancy for each bathroom accordingly. We've also gotten some questions about the threshold for going fully remote. This will be a multi-level process based on the number of people affected. And under the Director of Operations, Cindy Hooper's guidance, this will be managed on a case-by-case basis. What we learn in each case may lead to a closure for the entire school perhaps, or just a particular grade, or even a specific classroom. In terms of a full-time physical return to school, there's no metric for that as of now. We will start cautiously and see how things might evolve. It's probably not something that would happen right away though. And it's likely something that would happen for the lower school, ending up as a full day program first, due to all the logistics around being a remote lower school. The potential return to a full day on-campus program is something that we are also planning for as well, however. In terms of if there are any plans for school-wide COVID testing, as of right now, while we don't have full confidence that school-wide testing would be terribly helpful, Tom Flemma, our head of school, our new assistant head of school, Mary Fielder, and the board of trustees are actively revisiting that question as we speak. And in regards to if any teachers will be teaching remotely, right now we're monitoring that. As those questions come in from the faculty, we'll be dealing with each one individually. And if it were to happen, there would need to be another adult in the actual physical classroom managing class dynamics. And finally, no, our middle school teachers will not be on campus for the entire day. Most middle school faculty will travel home at 11:55 to participate in their afternoon school meetings, to run the common work periods we described earlier, and to teach the afternoon classes that run from 2:30 to 3:05. And okay, so it is time for your questions. On the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a button that says chat. If you hit that, it'll open a chat box on the right-hand side of your screen. You can type your question in the text box on the bottom. Your questions will only be visible to me, Rachel, and Laura. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can, and we'll follow up with you directly if we weren't able to answer your question here. Also, just a time check, it is 7:52. We will officially end at 8, but we will continue answering questions until they're exhausted. If you need to step away, feel no need to stay on the call, as this is being recorded, and we'll be sending this out via our COVID-19 website that we'll show you the link to in a few minutes as well. So let's see.
I'm
ahead.
just going to jump in here. I'm seeing a couple questions about fall sports and what fall sports will be offered. So as I said, the athletic department is still working really hard on determining which fall sports are going to be the best options for our middle school students so that they can be safe, be as socially distanced as they need to be, and still have a good energy level. So we don't have clear answers yet about the options. You can anticipate it will probably be different than typical fall options. But you can also anticipate that we will have some more information about that shortly.
Patrick, I see that you're on the call. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to that answer?
I'm going to look for Patrick to unmute him, I think.
All right, thank you. First of all, it's great to be here, and thanks for giving me the time to talk about Raider athletics. We always are excited to get, especially the new crew of sixth graders in our, onto our teams. The current guidelines are nationally for us to have low-risk sports. Those are sports like cross country, tennis, some other options along those. Baseball is actually one of those. Those are three that are very likely to run this fall. We'll have more information on that. I will also add that we will be doing all our middle school athletics on campus. So just so the kids can get to their practices quickly and then on to their next commitments during the school day. What I've said all along is that also families should expect things to improve incrementally. We've worked really hard this summer. We've had 5 weeks of kind of activity for upper school students to get our protocols in place so we're running smoothly. Now we are going to start up with upper school sports on Monday and then middle school sports when school begins. I expect it to be a 7 to 8 week fall season, incrementally starting with practice, then going to intra-squad competition, and hopefully eventually interscholastic competition. You should know, though, that the Illinois Elementary School Association has canceled fall sports, and that affects a lot of our competitors, and our peer institutions, Lab, Latin, and Parker, have canceled their middle school athletic programs. Now I'm a competitor. I don't want to see our program canceled, so don't worry about that. We'll have sports this fall, and I just need your patience, and we will look forward to then incrementally improving the sports program over the course of the year as we get back to normal in our community.
Thank you, Patrick. There's a question here around if the weather is inclement or cold and children might have extra gear, like heavy coats, umbrellas, etc. Will there be a place to store some of those things? We are in the process of working with Cindy Hooper and the upper school administrative team to figure out where that can be. So we're still working on it. And for some of these questions that are still as yet unanswered, for any questions that don't come out that are not answered in other departmental emails that'll come your way, there is another middle school update coming from me close to August 21st that will hopefully have even more answers to some of the things we can't answer tonight. Cindy, do you have anything to add to that around storage space, if at all? And I'll look for Cindy to unmute her. There she is.
Hi, thanks, Barry, and welcome everyone. It's going to be great to see your children soon. But as Barry said, we're still working on some of these logistic matters. The beauty of the upper school building, Arts Center and Science Center, we have a lot of space to work to make sure if the children do need to bring some extra things, jackets, umbrellas, those type of things, we'll find a home for them. But it will take some coordination with the upper school and how they manage the building as well. So we'll get that sorted out.
Thank you, Cindy.
I see a question about class sizes and what our typical class sizes will be this year. So our typical class sizes are going to be similar to the class sizes that we have had in the past. So I would say that maximum is around 14, 15 students in most cases. Cindy has done a really dutiful job of going into every classroom space on our campus to see how many students can fit in that room socially distanced. So our nodes, our seating, they're all spaced 6 feet away from each other. There's plenty of space for teachers to move about the room if they need to, and to stand and teach from the front of the room as well. So we're making sure as we're scheduling classes for particular classrooms that we're not putting more students than are completely safe with social distancing in those rooms.
There is a question here about the idea of students staying later in the day due to parental need. We are working on, so I mentioned earlier the idea of some structured study halls. There will be much more information coming from both the lower and middle schools together early next week about that programming and what it will look like. But we do intend to have a space for students to be until 3 o'clock. And then there is potential for a 3 to 5 program, 3 to 5 p.m. program, also based on need. And again, more information will come out about that to all of you early next week. There is a question about school photos. We are working on school photos. I really appreciate the question. And we're working on thinking through that process. There may be, instead of doing something on campus, we may ask for families to submit photos from home, but we're still working on finalizing that process. In order to have our student IDs done on time, it is very likely that a separate communication about photos will come sooner rather than later. So thank you for the question. We are working on it and more to come.
And Barry and Rachel, I'll just pose one of the questions about the middle school scoop, if the scoop would be available to parents and students this year. I know we shared it with parents in the spring. I see you nodding your head, so I'll just say the answer will be yes. Parents will see a version of the scoop. And then also, if you could talk a little bit more about the parts, and maybe for our new families, just a quick overview of what parts means and what that will look like.
Rachel, do you want to tackle that?
Sure. Yes, I just wanted to make sure I'm unmuted and not describing parts to myself over here. Parts is our performing arts, visual and performing arts program. I'm going to try to name a few of the parts classes. I'm sure I'm going to miss some of them, but they include band, chorus, acting, technical theater, studio art, which has a different name. Art lab, thank you. There's a digital media and design course. And what am I leaving out?
I'm not sure if you said chorus or independent, or excuse me, Instrumental ensemble.
Yes, and I just realized I forgot dance. Apologies to dance. So all of those are offered during our parts time. Our parts classes are cross grade level. So most of our parts classes are open to students in all of the middle school grades. Some of our parts classes are open to only 7th and 8th graders. As students get a little bit older, they can elect to take those classes. So either in the spring or over the summer, if you're new to the school, your child had an opportunity to rank some of their selections for a parts course, and they have been placed in a parts class for this upcoming year. Like I said, they'll have it with students in other grade levels. Parts class meets 2 days a week. This year it will be part of our afternoon remote learning time. So it will meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 2:30 to 3:05. I see a related question that just came in about student schedules. Typically, when we work with students and their schedules, that's on our first day of school, organization day. During that time, we have students copy over their schedule from My North Shore onto a blank template of their schedule. This year, that's all going to be done on the iPad, so your child can mail you a copy of their schedule, email it to you, and share it with their advisor as well.
And there's a question here, and Tom, we're going to try to find you on the list and unmute you for a second. But the question is there a plan to end classes by Thanksgiving, similar to what some other schools are doing for extended time, where we would be working remotely before a break and then after a break for quarantine purposes? Tom?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So, of course, my internet was going in and out right at the same time that you were asking the question. Barry, could you repeat it one more time for me, please?
Absolutely, no problem. Is there any plan to potentially end classes earlier around Thanksgiving in order for us to transition to a fully remote set of classes, similar to maybe what other schools are doing for purposes of quarantine?
Right. Okay. Great question. And we've gotten that question a couple of times. There are definitely schools that have made that decision. I don't know of as many independent day schools that have made the decision or public day schools yet. As of now, we have not made that call. We did have a lengthy conversation about it over the course of the summer. If we are actually live learning, we were loath to lose 3 to 3.5 weeks of class time if we didn't need to. So we definitely realize that that might be a possibility, but we have not yet made a decision for us to go fully remote between Thanksgiving and January break. If we do, it will be more in response to what the situation looks like in October, and we would still make that call with plenty of notice for everybody.
Great, thank you so much, Tom. And just scanning the list if there are any more. There's a question that's specific to how certain classes, particularly the performing arts classes, will be working while remote, and that's going to be different from case to case. The good news is that each of our performing arts teachers does have experience from last spring in terms of transitioning those classes to a fully remote experience. And what we'll do is I will reach out to the family who wrote the specific question about one of the performing arts classes, so we can share a little bit more detail there. And of course, more details will be coming directly to the students from the teachers within the first few days of school. Our organization day, which is August 31st, where all students will be on campus for the first day in that morning. Within the first few days, if it's not that day, and Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, there will be an opportunity for the performing arts teachers to meet their students in person and share a little bit more details about what the course would look like from afar. And I think that those are all the questions, and I'm seeing that we are over time. But we can stay on for a few minutes, but what I'll do is I'll just close officially, and then we can wait a few more minutes for any other questions that may come in. So just to quickly end, here are just a few final resources for you on the next slide. There we go. Please be sure to check out our North Shore webpage dedicated to our response to COVID-19. It's actually here where you'll find many of the resources that we shared even last spring. You'll find tonight's presentation. Tomorrow you'll find tonight's presentation. And you'll of course be able to find the links within our presentation and a lot of the information we've covered here today at that site. Additionally, if you're seeking even more details, please be sure to look through my recent middle school update email, which went to all middle school families. And don't hesitate to reach out to me or Rachel or Sheila Burke if you did not receive that email. We want to be sure that you did. And also be sure to take a look at our return to school plan that Dr. Flemma emailed a number of days ago. It's incredibly thorough and has some really great information in there. Also, just a quick reminder about our current COVID response email address, which is covid@nscdsincluded.org. If you send an email to that address, it'll go directly to Tom Flemma, Cindy Hooper, school nurse Jamie Valker, and our new assistant head of school, Mary Fielder, one of whom will answer your email or direct you to who can. That said, thanks to everyone for coming this evening, and thank you so much for your support and your partnership. Please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us as we navigate these brand new systems, these brand new buildings, and all of these processes together. Have a great night, and we hope to see you all soon. We'll stick around to see if there are any other questions in the chat. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Hi, everyone.
Have we gotten any more questions in the chat feature?
I'm not seeing any as of right now, but we'll give it a minute or so.
Okay.
I see a few questions coming in here. So there's a question about if the lower school is doing remote afternoons similar to the middle school. The answer is yes, but not identical in terms of the structure. So what I will do is I will connect the parent who's asking that question to head of the lower school so that he can provide a little more information. And similar to this presentation, there will also be on the COVID-19 website a very similar presentation from the lower school, which can answer some of those questions as well. There's another question here. And Cindy, I'm glad you're still on the call. We'll unmute you. There's a question here. How will we be notified if someone in our child's class has COVID?
Yes, well, we'll be doing, we'll work it through the head of school office, and we'll do it as soon as we can give the information out. Our intent is we'll have an action plan. Once we get informed about that, we'll work through a communications plan and get that sent through the head of school's office so everyone's notified. And most importantly, know what actions we need to take from that point with the children who may have been in class or in close contact with that student.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Oh, and Cindy, sorry, there's a quick follow-up. I want to get the wording right, but I just lost it. Hang on. Would we be told if someone, I think this is getting at some of the specifics of what would be in that communication. And I think from what I've heard you say over the last couple of days, that in terms of whether families would be told who in the actual class actually has it, my understanding from what you've said is that that would be case by case. Do you want to elaborate on that?
It is. There's, and I can appreciate the question. We will have to follow the Illinois Department of Public Health's guidelines. We're only allowed to share the information that they direct us to share regarding the case and the location of the case. This is where contact tracing comes in. There'll be a degree of anonymity of who it is, but we will be able to kind of gradiate, if you can imagine, a target and work the concentric circles from the target and inform the families as needed based on how close they were to a positive case or a close contact case.
Thank you so much again, Cindy. And I believe that those are all of the questions. So thank you all so much for joining. Again, we will post this as soon as we can on our school website. And it was a pleasure to speak with all of you. Don't hesitate to reach out with any other questions. Thank you and have a great night.